time. Please be different. In the top left for Team BIG, he is the Red Protoss, ShoWTimE.
And spawning over in the bottom right-hand side, playing for Team Liquid, it is Harstem. I almost couldn't imagine Harstem not in Team Liquid at this point. And he's like kind of one of their newest recruits-ish. Like he hasn't been on the team for a hell of a long time, but it just fits so well.
It really does. When they were kind of teasing about new recruits, I guessed correctly. I was talking with my friends about it because I just like, man, it makes sense. You know, Clem's doing really well recently, so I think that's one of them. And then for Protosses, I was like thinking of someone who was doing well, who wasn't on a team, but it wasn't necessarily about Harstem's gameplay, although it is very solid. Or we always have his little moments of Year of Harstem, right? It was just, it made so much sense as his personality goes, and he was becoming the content machine that he is now. Back when it was being picked up, which was 2019 Katowice. It was their debut.
Yeah, definitely. It feels like a lifetime ago now. Like I remember being at the LAN and then they turned up in their hoodies and stuff. And I was like, oh, wow, congratulations. Okay, so this game, ShoWTimE did scout very, very quickly with that probe. And seeing that probe turn up so quick, it shows an air of confidence about ShoWTimE. Like just making sure that his opponent's not up to no good. Harstem has got a proxy pile on the top right side of the map, and his probe is sticking around there. So maybe the Honus will be on Harstem to make, well, maybe a very fast Stargate up in that location, quite possibly.
Possibly. I mean, it's in one of those locations that actually makes it a bit difficult to say 100% because the Stargate usually will be proxied, well, exactly where ShoWTimE is scouting. That's why he's not putting it there, right? So ShoWTimE checks the most obvious place for a proxy Stargate first, right near his main, and then he's going to check the corners, which is going to find it successfully.
Okay, so Harstem, just then, his face, like as soon as he saw that probe, he was like, damn it. Like you really saw it on his face. Also, he was trying to sell this totally different. Like he started making a Zealot and a Stalker on his gateways just to show they were producing something. And he was hoping that ShoWTimE was going to read that, but ShoWTimE just too good, too clean. He spots everything that's going down, comes back here again with a probe, and he's like, okay, what you making out of this? And it will be an Oracle being chrono boosted, but this is definitely not the start that Harstem wanted.
Nope. I mean, he's going to be able to execute the opener. The Oracle will pop out before the Stalkers get here to try and cancel it. And he might even save the Stargates for further use as well, because 2 Oracles is really where things can get scary. But it's obviously supposed to be more of a surprise. ShoWTimE is going to be pushed away. No deny there. And he does have a block in his natural. So he was planning on going for a Nexus. You don't really have to take the threat of a push, right? When it's a Stargate opener, it's about harassment, not actually killing you. So I like that Harstem did get in there to block it out. And ShoWTimE, even using his Stalkers to deal with it, is like slightly late to dealing with the Oracle, just a little. Oh, not quite. 1 probe goes down.
Yeah, like Harstem definitely wanted more out of this, but considering everything was scouted, like his expo is significantly faster than ShoWTimE's. So I'm looking at this and I'm not even like, wow, ShoWTimE's so far ahead. Yeah, he got the information that he wanted, and he will have a more valuable tech when it comes to the army very soon, because I assume he's going to be getting Blink a lot earlier than Harstem. But yeah, Harstem's done a lot of good behind this, and we've absolutely got a fairly even game on our hands, which is it's nice to say after the whole day.
Yeah, we'll see how the engagement goes, right? Because you're right. Right now, it's even. You really can't adapt from that type of opener. Just because it's scouted doesn't mean that it's over. And in fact, it's not even uncommon to have it as an opener, not even necessarily as like a cheese, to go right into that blink, be only seconds behind ShoWTimE in it, and yet have a kind of much faster Nexus thanks to the pylon block. The biggest discrepancy is that Harstem is later to +1, which makes him later to +2, so on and so forth. And I think that will be a big enough gap that ShoWTimE can take advantage.
Yeah, I also like that ShoWTimE has a couple of extra sentries, meaning he can hallucinate scout a lot more freely. Harstem does have the Oracle, which he can continuously scout with, but the timer on that and being able to deal damage, it's going to be up once that blink is done, because then you have to be super ultra careful. And then it's a question of how does Harstem want to scout from that point on?
ShoWTimE's hallucination just got in there and saw nothing iffy, saw that the forge was in fact starting to build +1 at the very least, and that the chances of a Dark Shrine might be low. I guess you can never really count it out. So ShoWTimE does have that robo finished. As I was saying in a previous series, like if a Pros player can push off that robo and invest into other things that can give them like an army advantage, we can try and push that. That's what Goblin tried to do and didn't work out. So it's actually kind of a mimic of that game where Harstem is moving out. His Oracle might look for a distraction, but it's only one, so how much can it really do? But maybe he can actually get like a cheeky shield battery kill. Maybe a Stalker's too far forward, right? It's nothing serious, but it is something that can catch someone off guard.
Certainly is. Gets the cancel on the shield battery, which is a nice little move out for Harstem. Just wants to keep his opponent honest and get anything done, whatever he can. The Oracle moves into the natural while all this is going on, though. A little bit late on the attacking there. And ShoWTimE's quite quick to respond. It's at the end of the Oracle, honestly. I'm seeing it all over Harstem's face. Every time he feels that something doesn't go his way, a little bit of a jolt there of the head, and he didn't like that.
No, he did not. The Oracle was still valuable as a scout, and it could have done a little bit more damage before dying, since it inevitably did die. That's a regret right there. But at least Harstem still has, like, what, a faster charge coming in here? And if he's putting Chronos into his +1, he actually could catch up. I mean, it's not impossible at all for ShoWTimE to actually hit with an upgrade advantage, but there are steps that Protosses can make, right? The choosing of the chrono, the amount of distractions they set up on the front lines that can try and bridge the gap a little bit, because we're kind of back to where we were like a few 3-4 years ago, where a lot of PvP comes down to the +2 timing. Back then, it was like pure Immortal Charge Lot Archon. Now we have the new fancy Blink Stalker openers that control the map a little bit more. But yeah, we are back to just like, oh, +2. Okay, who's gonna initiate the fight? Who's gonna try and win the game here?
Yeah, totally. That charge being so much earlier, it doesn't look like Harstem will be able to get much done with it. They're both very happy just being on their sides of the map, just scouting very diligently by both of them. Harstem did have to throw down an extra sentry and whatnot, but it's ShoWTimE taking the fairly early fourth. Now, Harstem does have some units there at the bottom of the map, maybe to scout or maybe to pounce on this and cancel. In fact, it's not enough to cancel. But yeah, ShoWTimE just showing that he's not really that afraid with what he's seen, which I think that's absolutely correct.
It really is. There's nothing to say that Harstem would have an advantage to push, as the third base has also been saturated. He sees the amount of gases. He sees the army still at home, the most obvious tell of all. And as such, ShoWTimE can start to maneuver. He can start to set up his engagements. He's probably clicking on Harstem's units and realizing, yes, confirming that I have that faster +2. He's not going to hit it as swiftly as possible. So this is the seconds that Harstem needs to also catch up on that upgrade, because that is right now, it's the only deficit. Like even on workers, fairly close on army, and just the fourth Nexus even coming down now for Harstem isn't too far past either. So it looks like ShoWTimE, actually even pulling back here, is not going to hit with an upgrade advantage.
No, these Stalkers are quite adventurous, it has to be said. Fake Warp Prism, I like that, trying to force maybe a bit of an overreaction from ShoWTimE. Harstem's definitely playing a little bit tricky, a little bit sneaky, and seeing that Warp Prism at the top, yeah, he's got to respect that, even if because he doesn't know whether it's real or not.
That's a tricky one indeed. I love that little touch there from Harstem. It's going to distract 4 Stalkers away from the main fight. ShoWTimE is finally setting up for what looks actually, I mean, the possibility of an engagement, but so far he's actually been shy of pushing past the mid zone. Okay, he's finally done it, but that's when Harstem comes in with Stalkers, not due to a Warp Prism. They just walk their butts across the map, and they are going to get instantly recalled, sure, but it forces Warp-ins as well for ShoWTimE. Now here comes the engagement, finally equal upgrades. Harstem comes in a bit late to defend his shield battery, which does get taken out. His cannon's also going down very fast. He goes after the Warp Prism, however, with his Stalkers, and they actually grab it, which gives him a chance to hold on. His Archons are also doing some excellent work against ShoWTimE's Zealots. I guess ditto for ShoWTimE, to be honest. And who is actually going to be able to win this out? You'd think it's the guy who can actually reinforce, and it is for now.
Oh, it certainly is. That was a beautiful snipe on the Warp Prism. He went gung-ho, and here are the reinforcements from ShoWTimE. And has Harstem slightly overextended? Those 3 Archons are going super damn strong against the Zealots. Harstem not only holds, he retains a pretty damn good probe advantage here. And all things said and done, Harstem's not only putting up a fight, I think he might be taking the lead this game.
I think so. ShoWTimE did manage to get an upgrade lead towards like the beginning, like the middle to end of that fight with the +1 shields kicking in. But I would prefer having 2 disruptors already building, and that's what Harstem has. He already moved on to this disruptor tech, which ShoWTimE really should also be moving on to if he knew that that's the pace that has been set. His Zealots see his opponent's disruptors, and now is the time for ShoWTimE to decide, do I also play the disruptor game, or do I try and just like throw bodies at him? And he does start up his robotics fade, but it's obviously so much later than Harstem's.
Yeah, Harstem's been sneaky this game, and I've enjoyed it a lot. That was so clutch sniping that Warp Prism like he did. And you said it, those Zealots were absolutely getting munched on both sides by all the Archons, but ShoWTimE does have a supply lead for the moment here, which it's not saying that much because it is a lot of Zealots, and Harstem does have, you know, a decent counter those Archons. The Disruptors, those are what really clinch it for Harstem in my eyes, though.
Absolutely. As long as they get the shots, right? Which is always a question. But since the mobility is not quite here yet for ShoWTimE, he's actually starting to get some run-bys in. It is a lot about these direct engagements. Can the Disruptors get those big shots? ShoWTimE actually not going to be able to move in with his army because Harstem's reacting very appropriately while still chasing down the main army of his opponents. And okay, no big engagement quite yet.
Yeah, even though I did like Harstem's position, like not too long ago, I still am worried because I'm looking at the map and how ShoWTimE's posturing. It's all happening on Harstem's side of the map. And that's a bit scary because what we've seen today is the player that is a bit more like the bully, the more confident player, has been the one shining through, and Harstem just kind of willing to sit back here, and he's definitely shadowboxing very well, but yeah, I am feeling ShoWTimE's confidence.
I think that's a very good thing to bring up. I mean, especially in this matchup. And it has been maybe a problem of Harstem's in the past where he ends up being a little too defensive. He gets a little too shy of taking the engagement, even when he does have a fairly solid lead. Or he just, you know, maybe the way that he feels comfortable, but it can eventually lead to ShoWTimE getting maybe faster nexuses or more harassment opportunities, or even out-teching him, which did not happen this game. But it means that ShoWTimE has at least matched his technology. He has gotten to his own disruptors. 3-5 still in favor of Harstem, but the gap is closing.
Yeah, we're getting into a real late game PvP here, both moving up to 5 bases. The disruptors are... Those counts are getting big. Like, it's going to be very hard to engage against one another. And now they're both starting to deviate tech a little bit. We have Harstem being the one that is willing to go up to blink DTs, and that is where things can get super damn spicy. And Harstem's the one now on the map.
I finally like it. This is a position he can maybe take advantage of. He's got a disruptor actually shooting a lot of Zealots, while the distraction in the bottom left is cleaned up. I think one disruptor shot killed like 8 Zealots or something, so it was actually pretty valuable. Of course, we're not really talking about 8 Zealots being the make or break contributors to the fight at this point. It is so much more about the disruptors, so much more about comeback opportunities when you're on this just very significant splash damage, literally one-shots most of these units. So, you know, even if there is a good fight, it's not really going to end the game most of the time. So we talk about other things, including ShoWTimE's attempt to get into Stargates, but maybe a little bit too quick on that. He's still got to play out the mid-game. Oh my god, that disruptor shot there. ShoWTimE, I think he actually saw it. He just really couldn't do anything about it. He couldn't split away from it. He does get one in return at the very least. But again, some attempted run-bys not really working out. They're actually matching each other pretty well, army to army, on these little... Run-bys, is that the right word when it's like half their army? And their little shuffles and scuffles elsewhere on the map.
It was, so yeah, I was just appreciating it in my moment of silence there. Like, they're both meandering around the map so well, with 2 completely different armies in 2 completely different spots on the bottom of the map, but they're both mirroring each other very beautifully. And you see Harstem here, he's kind of meeting up with the rest of his army. Wow, what a ballsy blink by ShoWTimE. That disruptor hit did get some damage, but I think he took out maybe a disruptor or 2 for his efforts there. But Harstem, he's collapsing now with the bottom side of his army as well.
Yeah, ShoWTimE's gonna have to bring his army that was looking to defend the 4th base over to his 3rd or whatever it was, vice versa, and that is going to be enough for Harstem not to over-dedicate, because it is so dangerous to do so. You don't know exactly where the disruptors are set up or how the zealots will be coming in, right? If they get us around, your lone disruptor at this point for Harstem is not going to look that pretty, and there finally come more of his disruptors. A bit late to the party, however. ShoWTimE also again having a portion of his army not involved in the fight, at least has a good concave. And so far, Harstem's disruptors aren't finding much success. And
no,
you saw.
Yeah, you saw Harstem there. He was kind of predicting where the army should have come from ShoWTimE. So instead of firing on the left army, was just firing it out into the wilderness there. Good prediction by him, but just didn't pay off really. ShoWTimE was a little bit careful there, and he is keeping good tabs on this army. You can see the red splodge around the map. Like ShoWTimE, he's looking to flank this army with both sides here. Is this his moment though?
Oh, the disruptors are all over on the right side, and Harstem does pick up on it, so I'm not sure it's going to work out as brilliantly as hoping, because actually there's no disruptors on the left. So Harstem, I mean, well, he doesn't quite know that. It's actually ShoWTimE bringing out the Oracle, trying to get a revelation, misses it, but I think they both know that there's a possibility they're both going to Stargate after this. An engagement on top of ShoWTimE's Nexus is going to grab it and escape, while also, I think, taking a chunk of Zealots away as well, and the disruptors still with ammo are going to be able to safely retreat. Kind of safely. There's some hubbub, I suppose, on the left side, but actually ShoWTimE does not want to let this go. I don't think he can actually push after it.
No, I think that was a nice getaway by Harstem, all things said and done. Takes out one of the bases of ShoWTimE, gets away. The banks, though, for these players, they're starting to look pretty tough. Like, what does either one of these players really hope for? They're obviously hoping for the big kill, the big cancel here on the armies. Oh, ShoWTimE's fighting with only a chunk of his little squad here. Harstem's just collected his whole forces together, and it's making it very hard for ShoWTimE to engage.
ShoWTimE does have its disruptors now, and he's actually even trying maybe to like situate them in a position where they can come from behind, but so far losing out, bleeding out more often than Harstem is, because he also tried to take a 6th base, and then Harstem's like tiny little stalker squad is able to take it out. A little bit of a trade on the disruptors there, and ShoWTimE still does have 8 overall. Starting to take down Harstem, he goes for the target fire, has to split at the last second. And it is still 7 disruptors left for Harstem, which again should be able to safeguard his retreat should he actually retreat, which I think might be prudent.
Yeah, that's the question here. Is he going to retreat? He's actually teched all the way up to carriers behind all this. Like, he has very little gas, and it looks like ShoWTimE also kind of wanted to go into carriers, maybe. Like, he has his own fleet beacon and stuff, which hasn't come into play just yet. Oh my goodness. They're both, like, this is some very good play by both of them, but I'm feeling Harstem, man. Like, he being the one out on the map, like, ShoWTimE can't run away from these disruptors anymore.
It's ShoWTimE's really starting to run out of options. Like, his option right now is to take a good enough engagement that it completely pushes Harstem back. Like, it makes him go back and lick his wounds, which so far Harstem's not taking that bad of a fight. And with all the aggression he's applied to ShoWTimE, the denial of ShoWTimE's further bases, and him just, freely taking his 6, he's had it for a while, he's transferring all that economy into additional technology, something that ShoWTimE could do at a much slower pace, like 1 carrier at a time. So if Harstem can get to like 6 carriers, that is actually just going to be so difficult for ShoWTimE to take on.
Yeah, and this little Stalker hit squad again down there in the bottom left, like, it's cancelled that base, and yet again, ShoWTimE, I'm not even sure if he knows what kind of transitioning Harstem's done. He's been so preoccupied with the fact that Harstem's been in his face for like the last 5 minutes.
Yep. It's not even, the resources trading is not even that different. It's just that Harstem has had so much more with that extra base and been in so much more control too. So he's made some stronger decisions to try and tech out. ShoWTimE was kind of getting prepared, and then everything went a bit topsy-turvy. He had to defend. So he has the ability, when he feels comfortable, to go into either his own carriers or Tempest. Now, if he does get wind of Harstem's carriers in an early amount, like right now, for instance, maybe this Immortal could see it. Oh, I barely saw it, but I don't know if actually ShoWTimE was paying attention. Then maybe he can get Tempest, but I doubt he's paying attention. There was a scuffle to the top right. Now he knows, and the Tempests do start.
Yeah, and that's producing them at quite a decent rate as well. And he does have a damage upgrade on them. He's producing a lot of Stalkers. You don't really want Stalkers in these fights, but he has to do something about that carrier fleet at this point. It's going to be 8 on the map very soon for Harstem. I think Harstem's got a super good army against this. This just isn't enough for ShoWTimE to deal with. He needs to buy time, which is what he's trying to do.
Exactly. ShoWTimE needs to buy time, and Harstem in the past has been a little too hesitant with such a technology lead that the Tempest numbers grow enough, start taking down his carriers one at a time. It can turn around if Harstem doesn't push his advantage, but that's exactly what he's doing. He's literally pushing into ShoWTimE's bases, knowing that he has the carriers to even maybe focus fire down some disruptors. ShoWTimE is going to try and hold the best that he can. His Tempests are here, but they're not going to one-shot these carriers. They're actually not even focus firing on them yet, as there's so much chaos everywhere we look. Disruptors flying around, Stalkers trying to get a concave. DTs were trying to kill Harstem's base, but it didn't work. But I guess ShoWTimE, for now, is going to live. It wasn't a very pretty fight.
No, it wasn't. We've come full circle. They've both started producing their own Stalkers now to deal with one another. And that's because the air control is pretty damn important. These carriers, it forces ShoWTimE to not just attack move with his anti-air, he has to really click them down. So not only is he trying to avoid all these disruptor shots, he has to focus down these carriers, which is very, very tricky. Like, you have to run into the disruptor fire to take them down. Harstem's army comp is so good.
Even getting the better trade of the disruptors to start things off. It seems like he is inevitably going to get this Nexus. I don't know if ShoWTimE can actually defend it, especially just from good old-fashioned focus fire. It's actually not going to go down. He will temporarily save it, and he is getting back up to max thanks to 9 High Templars. Going to morph into those Archons, help take out the Interceptors, sure. And the Tempests still want to be target firing to the best of their ability.
Oh, it's a good number of Tempests now, though, and ShoWTimE has the range, but the power of the army, in fact, those carriers, bloody hell, they just get shot out the sky. But the carriers, the Stalkers, are on top of the Tempests.
That's exactly the problem with Tempest. They're so fragile that you actually just need to make sure that they're utilizing their range advantage, okay? That's where they are king if the carrier interceptors aren't on top of them. As soon as the interceptors are all unloaded, all on top of the Tempests fall so damn easily. So that's exactly what ShoWTimE can't allow happen again, especially because he did end up losing that top left base. I guess it was kind of mining out, and he's got the bottom left at the very least, so he's managed to stay almost maxed. But every fight seems to be getting harder for him as opposed to easier.
Oh, yeah, I mean, that is a silver lining of a very, very dark cloud, because Harstem, he's moving over to the south of the map, and ShoWTimE, he's trying to hang on here, but Harstem's just making life difficult, and getting these disruptors in the face of his opponent just allows Harstem, because now he's separated this army from the bottom base. Harstem could just move further south and take it all out, but he has to be careful.
Disruptors are lagging behind. The Tempests were getting damage on top of the carriers, which had that revelation. Now it's gone, actually. The probes are going to be slaughtered. The Nexus might end up falling again, but at least ShoWTimE might be able to take a good engagement, or it might not. Immediately blinking back from a disruptor leaves his Tempest vulnerable to Harstem's blink, and Harstem still has his own disruptors. This fight has not gone well at all for ShoWTimE, and he's going to lose his economy, so he taps out. Harstem takes game 1.
I tell you what, that was very impressive from Harstem as well, because all things considered, I mean, it feels like a lifetime ago now. That started off with Harstem getting immediately figured out with what tech he was going with the Stargate, the proxy. ShoWTimE found it all. And, you know, we all know ShoWTimE's very damn solid, but Harstem not only kept up there, I loved his play. I loved how he worked with everything. I think Harstem, that was some of the best PvP I've seen out of him, maybe ever. That was truly great play.
That reminded me a lot of his victory versus ShoWTimE in the Open Cup. It was a best of 5. It was a very tight race, but Harstem just came in looking like a much more confident and frankly better Protoss than he had in a lot of the other Open Cups, where he sometimes falls short of even the round of 16. Mm-hmm. So that is a good sign for Harstem fans out there. And I want to say it's a good sign for this being a back and forth series, but we'll see, I guess, very shortly if the whole first game means victory in the series is actually true. Because if it is, ShoWTimE is out of luck.
I mean, you're right. Like, if ShoWTimE won the first game, then I'd be like, this might be a 3-0. But the fact that Harstem's done it, Like, I think ShoWTimE is definitely the player that's more likely to bounce back from a deficit. But yeah, I like that is maybe the first game of the day, Zombie Grub, where the loser also played incredibly well. Which, because yeah, they were both sharking around the map with two armies trying to match each other, and yeah, it was hard to call whether it's a run by or not, because they needed both armies moving like they did to just keep tabs on one another, and it's incredibly difficult. I know a lot of people can talk about the A move kind of Protoss armies, but these absolutely weren't. Like, these disruptors, you have to play so well. When one of them shot there from Harstem and took out maybe 20-30 supply, that was really where Harstem felt like, okay, I've got the tempo now, and things totally switched, and you saw it.
Harstem played that game so well, actually, from start to finish, because even his like follow-up to the Stargate, I felt was still someone who was confident despite being scouted. Then he got to that tech a lot faster, and it was kind of ShoWTimE following his lead for a while, even into that carrier game, which isn't a great start. Like, you want to be on the same technology, or of course ahead of your opponent, with ShoWTimE never was. So he is surprisingly down one, spawning in the top right. It is ShoWTimE.
And spawning over in the bottom left of Oxide as the blue Protoss, it is Harstem. This map, of course, very different in PvP though, and you can see that from the openings thus far. Both of them, given that it's that ramp up to the natural, this is one of the best maps in the map pool, maybe one of the best maps we've had in a long time, where Protoss can actually try to go for that 1-gate expansion.
It was Oxide and Pillars of Gold in the last season's map pool. And now it's just Oxide, really. But they both are well aware of that, and are as such going to scout and block the Nexus, which is just such a funny dynamic, you know? Damn Protosses and their probes. They both get to think that this game.
It's became its own meta as well. Like, how is the most efficient way of going about dealing with this? Is it getting the pylon down, then the cybernetics core afterwards? Or I remember watching Zest at one point. I was watching it with Rotterdam, and he just decided to ignore it entirely, get out Zealot as fast as possible, which looks like what these guys are kind of going for. Harstem did go for the double gas, as did ShoWTimE, so both respecting each other a lot and being like, you know what? I'm not going to be able to get this Nexus up, but I don't want to fall too far behind in the gas count, because that is super important in PvP.
That's certainly true. It is always funny to witness the assumption, too, that like the Zealot will actually pop. And I've definitely seen some Protosses have this exact same opener, and then one is like, wait a minute, that probe still isn't near my natural? Okay, I guess I'll cancel the Zealot and get the Nexus, which, yeah, you definitely don't want to let happen. You want both of you to have to make the Zealot, both of you to have that delayed Nexus. ShoWTimE is the one that's going to delay even further because he's still chasing the probe, but also as he grabs a faster Stargate. But Harstem's also going to go for it, and ShoWTimE does scout it.
Yeah, this shows you a little bit of the deviation between the two. So Harstem got his Nexus down quite a bit earlier. ShoWTimE went for the faster Stargate. And by the way, that Nexus still not hopping down here. ShoWTimE's minerals, he's got more than enough money to get it. I feel that ShoWTimE, some of this stuff isn't lining up as well as it should. And even though you're like, okay, it's not the end of the world, that is definitely some lost time on that Nexus. It could have been so much faster in a Phoenix opener for Harstem here.
For ShoWTimE.
For ShoWTimE, my bad.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I don't know if it was like a change of spawn. I also was getting a little confused. But yeah, I'm just like, well, the reason I found it, I was so blunt in correcting you, I suppose, that I was surprised. I actually thought that ShoWTimE was still going to try and sneak in the Oracle, because they both scouted each other. So I guess it really is one of those mind games on mind games, like who will risk the Oracle. And I guess if I thought about it, ShoWTimE's not really the riskier player. It's going to be Harstem trying to get the Oracle out, trying to, I don't know, maybe regretfully get the Oracle out as the Phoenix just immediately jumps on it, which it won't kill it, but it now means the Phoenix can try and track it. So the Oracle is not, I mean, it's not going to get any probes.
Yeah, Oracles aren't what they used to be, though. Like, that armor switch, that armor change, like the Phoenix don't destroy it quite as quickly. But Harstem now, what does he do with the Oracle? Like, he's trying to sneak it out here. Phoenix immediately on his tail, and he's like, okay, I've got to get back home to that shield battery. Now we've got our own little game of cat and mouse going on. So, this is an unusual one, because not often do I see Protosses open up Phoenix like this, but Okay, this Oracle. This is mission impossible right now. And ShoWTimE, look at this. This is great scouting by ShoWTimE.
This is actual Mission Impossible, where like Tom Cruise, I guess, like plummets to his death, as opposed to barely like bypassing the red lines. This is just totally covered. ShoWTimE literally has all of the attack paths covered with Phoenix and a Zealot, even, which can't attack the Oracle but would see it. So even using the one Phoenix to try and dip in and see, okay, what technology you're getting into, maybe a bit expected, but confirmation on the blink and the +1. And still tracking the Oracle a bit too. Grabs a probe while I can. This is what a funnier start, sure, but it is leading into that typical blink game.
It is so funny to see how well ShoWTimE's managing this with his little red dots on the map, because we see everything, but trying to keep that Oracle back at home while also denying the third and stuff like he is doing. ShoWTimE's playing ridiculously well this game. Back at home as well. I don't think has he gone for shield batteries in his mineral lines? No, that's how confident he's been with his Phoenix. Just incredible play. But this Oracle, it has got past the danger zone really, which is this field of Phoenix that he could not pass, and now it's making a home. Well, it's making a sprint for ShoWTimE's base.
ShoWTimE didn't just grab a couple of probes and delay the Nexus, though. He also grabbed the Sentry. So this Oracle has got a pretty tough job to actually make up for how much the Phoenixes were able to control the scenario. And doesn't look like he'll be able to do very much. There's already 2 Stalkers up there. Phoenixes are being chased down a little bit, which also kind of reveals Harstem's possible intention to poke at this 3rd Nexus, but it's so healthy. It's like 80% done. Harstem's little like hit squad here shouldn't do very much.
No, definitely not. It is so amusing for me watching Harstem's reactions to everything. A lot of players are very stoic, like zero reaction. You can see when the disappointment sits in. And seeing that Oracle do practically nothing, very easily shut down by ShoWTimE, he was very sad. The hallucination on the Stalkers is really cute, but that shield battery, this makes this a very uneven fight in favor of the German.
Yeah, the shield battery's even cuter, man. Like, it's pretty good. The hallucinations aren't going to add enough. Harstem even considered adding on a proxy pylon to really push the issue, or at least control the scenario again, but I think he's realizing that that would be a step too far. Like, ShoWTimE could actually get enough reinforcements faster than him, and even blink aggressively, so overcommitting would be a mistake, and I think that Harstem recognized that. But Harstem also grabbed the Dark Shrine. DTs are warping in. Phoenix run over them? Are they looking for the Shimmer? They might be.
I think they must. Where are the observers for ShoWTimE? Because he does have at least one out. One is building. Oh my goodness. This gets super shut down by ShoWTimE. And there is a counter pounce by Harstem, keeping that DT alive. But this definitely hasn't gone how Harstem wanted it to. But we are approaching a phase of the game which, I mean, ShoWTimE's got such a bank available. The supplies are a little bit deceiving here.
Right, exactly. I do want to mention it before we go too far more into this game, that like I think what also was really cool about ShoWTimE's decision was that his Adept early on in the game was able to get a scout on what the Stargate was building. And I feel like that just confirmed everything that he did afterwards with those Phoenix. Now, as cool as all that was, and as much as it feels like ShoWTimE is taking these like multiple steps forward, not like leaps, but steps forward, it's really not that much of a game gone. And actually, as ShoWTimE he didn't start his +2 quickly at all. And I actually was thinking like, oh, maybe he's going to set up for a +1 attack, which we have seen, but now it's just awkward. Now he's got his 4th Nexus, but like a significantly later +2, and I'm wondering what happened there.
I've seen this a little bit in ShoWTimE's play, that he's very cautious when he expands and how he expands and stuff. And you see in this series, he's been behind in probe just a little bit, but because Harstem's been able to get away with it, like maybe Harstem's been a little bit greedy, I don't know exactly, but this is something that's allowing Harstem to kind of keep up in these games, which he's more than doing. Bit of a brief pause by Harstem. I hope everything's all right. A little bit of lag.
Yeah, it is him. We actually had this yesterday as well, so I don't know. Europe, get it together, man. Get it together. Yeah, hello. Welcome back to our faces. We got ourselves a fairly even game, except for that +2. And Harstem, like, as he paused, is literally setting up to hit with this +2 advantage. I don't know if he knows it's it's there or how big of an advantage it is, but it's actually going to be pretty scary for ShoWTimE to hold. I feel like we should get into game before I talk about the actual map design, because I think that will play a big part in this engagement. So I'll hold on that while Harstem turns off his camera.
Yeah, if I think about how this game went, so many things seemingly went very right for ShoWTimE. So I know Harstem got up his expo much earlier, but ShoWTimE got a bit more info, as you said, and pointed out with the Adept and what have you. But yeah, I've liked how Harstem's just kind of eked out a little bit of an economic edge almost, even though it's not much at all. But ShoWTimE has reacted beautifully to a lot of what Harstem's been throwing at him, and he does have, like, this could be, even though ShoWTimE doesn't have that +2 yet, I feel this could be one way for ShoWTimE to absolutely bounce back into this, because I feel that he's almost looking for a fight, but the tech of his army is significantly worse here.
Yeah, Harstem has 5 gases and Archon technology and a decent number of that. ShoWTimE, not so much. Just has a Warp Prism, the Micro, and that's really all he's got. He's got no shield batteries working here as well. A good concave, I suppose, right? And his supply currently is saying that he's winning, but the Warp Prism of Harstem is still alive. Most of his Archons are still alive. He might try and push it. No, he's not going to be able to. ShoWTimE actually pounces on that Warp Prism, takes it down, and all of this with an upgrade deficit. Focus fires down the Archons. Dang, this went so much better for ShoWTimE than I anticipated.
Honestly, I think this is the first time I can be like, Harstem, like, I don't totally understand this. I know he had the Archons and stuff. GG is called, ShoWTimE takes it, but he had the pro bleed. He was the one that was kind of dictating the economic game there. ShoWTimE was almost banking on hoping that Harstem attacked him there, which he absolutely did. And I don't think Harstem needed to at all. Like, that Archon count, if you let Zealots attack into you as opposed to you attacking into your opponent, you get more of a concave going around. Yeah, Harstem seemed a little overly eager in that one.
It's hard to blame him. You would have seen that he had an upgrade lead and would have seen that his opponent was taking the fight without shield batteries. Those are two, like, green lights usually. But yeah, the concave's a little too good. Moving in as opposed to waiting for ShoWTimE to move into him. They've also been one of the bigger differences, but it is what it is. Now we have a tied series finally for the day. And with that game 2 being done, we are going to go to a break. When we come back, it is just more StarCraft. No one's going to be potentially eliminated. Not yet anyways, so stay tuned. Welcome back. We're into a game 3 where it's finally just tied up. No one is on the brink of defeat here, as Harstem versus ShoWTimE has finally been delivering where a lot of other series are not. A couple of great games and a bit of a surprising end to that last one.
I like that you look so happy, you know? We finally got a series on our hands, Zombie Grove, and it does feel like you've been waiting a while for it to happen. Anyhow, spawning over in the bottom left-hand side of 2,000 atmospheres, it is Harstem.
In the top right for Team BIG, he is ShoWTimE.
$2,000 atmospheres, like obviously a very different map to Oxide, given that there's no ramp to the natural and what have you. So we will probably see the far more orthodox openings with the 2 gateways on top of the ramp. I don't really take either of these players for cannon rushers. I know I've seen them get cannon rushed by people like MaxPax, but yeah, I feel that both these guys are very true and honest PvPers, which it's not very often you come across a very honest Protoss that's like that to the core, actually.
It's not very often you come across an honest Protoss. End statement, the Muslim 2021.
They're all filthy.
Yeah. But it's true. I mean, these guys they're willing to play outside the box, and ShoWTimE has had his like month where he was honestly doing nothing but cheeses. It felt like that was his month of cheese practice. And Harstem has been the type to throw in a couple of cannon rushes, but you know what? I still remember his cannon rush that I saw last year, where it actually started one of the worst series I think of his life versus Mana. It failed. He couldn't get the pro back up the high ground, and then the second game was also really bad for him. So I don't know. Maybe he's a bit turned off from it.
That was Harstem? Okay.
I believe so, yeah.
Was it on Death Aura?
Yeah. Yes, it was.
Okay, yeah, I remember that. And now it's all coming back to me. Yes, his smile, like he knew it all went terrible. But this game, wow, that is a Stargate starting for Harstem. It is proxied, but it's outside his base. And he started it before he started up any units on his gateways as well. He's now following up with Double Stalker, but this is the fastest Stargate you can pretty much get with this kind of opening. Oh my goodness, is ShoWTimE scouting really this good?
I mean, apparently he just starts setting his probe around the corners of the map, and then his stalkers kind of go up the guts, to check for those types of proxies. And it's worked out brilliantly for him in a lot of PvPs.
It's not just that probe either. He had the probe on the other right side of the map as well. So he was really diligent about scouting everywhere for something. Yeah, just very nice, clean play by ShoWTimE. And for the second time in this series, the Stargate has just been scouted monumentally quickly by ShoWTimE.
But maybe, perhaps, for a second time in this series, we'll have it scouted, and then a normal macro game will ensue. That was game number 1 that went on for 22 minutes, something like that. So it could happen again here. ShoWTimE, I mean, it's not even that he's not the type of guy to try and punish it. It's just like the opportunities to punish it really aren't that apparent. You'd have to already be planning, I think, an aggressive build order to try and take advantage.
Yeah, it's just super nice knowing that you're not against some proxy robot or anything like that, right? Because then you have to be a bit more worried. Maybe a pro production isn't super fluid and consistent, and getting shield batteries at the front. Whereas this kind of scenario, this Oracle shows up and gets a probe, which is maybe more than Harstem was hoping for after the initial scout, but it is going to be followed up by a second Oracle and his own Twilight Council. This could still deal damage.
It could. Keep an eye on those Oracles, as ShoWTimE also would love to do. He gets an hallucination into the main and confirms that follow-up of Twilight Council and also the Forge, which really does signal that more macro game. The double Oracles swoop in through the middle, trying to trick out some of the stalker positions, go through the right side, kill 5 probes before they exit, and they'll even live.
That was actually maybe the one entrance to the base that ShoWTimE didn't have super covered there, which was straight through the middle of everything. And you don't often think about that. I don't know if you watched there was some translation for Flash against Soma also in Brood War. and it had all the pro gamers watching it, their commentary, and they were all like, there's one moment where a dropship flies right through the middle where it shouldn't go, and they're all like, this is ridiculous, this is like not what you meant to do, this is like tragic play, and then it worked out, and they're all like, man, he's such a genius for knowing that would work. And I feel very similar about Harstem's play just then. That was very nice by him.
If there was any units there, we kind of, we call him out. We're like, oh, what was he thinking? But if it works out perfectly, call him a genius. And it did work out perfectly. So kudos to Harstem, who still, of course, has his 2 oracles alive, just being tracked by a hallucination. ShoWTimE is still going to get that much faster 3rd Nexus. And now I'm actually wondering... There it is. Okay. I was like, where's the probe? It actually was one of the probes that was like off in the Xel'Naga that built the 3rd Nexus. So he is going to go for the Nexus. It is, what, 30, 40 seconds later?
Yeah, it's definitely later. And despite killing a good 6 or so probes this game for Harstem, he's only, well, in fact, he's very close on the probe count. 46, 45 apiece. Not really anything there to decipher either player. The one thing is, yeah, Harstem taking that much earlier, or rather... ShoWTimE taking the much earlier 3rd. That's definitely a bit different, right, for the series, because it's usually been Harstem kind of eking out the little edge there on the expo and stuff, but Harstem far more willing to just sit back a little bit this time.
Harstem does once again have the upgrade lead. Not that it did him very well in the last game, so ended up losing the main fight, but he will have it here, and we'll have it for that +2. Harstem has got a very defensive setup with a lot of stasis traps. I mean, his oracles, I guess, weren't going to do very much more. So I think that is just why they're there. He is still going to move out with a good number of stalkers, a single sentry that's going to have like 1 force field, and see if he can grab anything, because he does have a proxy pylon. It might be slow warp-ins, but if ShoWTimE's investing into technology right now, not expecting an attack, that's exactly when Harstem's plan will work.
Yeah, this has been very Puppet Master-esque by Harstem, lulling him over with the left, with the oracle, but ShoWTimE is very quick to react, and oh, wow, that was tell you what, that was an ambitious blink by ShoWTimE. Doesn't quite get that sentry out of it, but this attack by Harstem hasn't really got much done, and now ShoWTimE's the one with a bit of a probe lead, and the upgrades, they're as equal as they can be, except Harstem, again, just much quicker to start up that +2.
Not so much that ShoWTimE couldn't recover with a couple of chronos, and he is chronoing both charge and +2. Repeatedly. 4th Nexus comes down for him. Warp Prism is already being built for ShoWTimE, and he might start to control the map a little bit prior to actually engaging.
Yeah, like PvP can go a few ways with what armies they choose to go for, whereas this time it looks like they're both kind of going for those brawler-style armies, in that they're both getting a lot of gateways. Templar Archives coming down now. Is that the first robo for ShoWTimE? It is. It's so nice that for Harstem, yes. I keep mixing them up. Why is my production tab this way round? Like, I've got Harstem on the bottom, and then I've got Harstem's production tab on the top, and I'm like, gosh darn it! But either way, yeah, it's totally messed up for me, Zombie Grub.
Well, I'm here, all right? I do think it is pretty important to note that robo is only now coming down. I mean, that is going to be 1 immortal in favor of ShoWTimE, which sometimes doesn't really make or break a fight, but is contributing. And then it also took away the option of Harstem's Warp Prism coming out, as fast. So he wasn't the one quite set up for an engagement, at the exact perfect timing as his charge and +2 finish. If the Warp Prism was there, maybe he actually pushes, but it's not. So this is just a little stalker poke, and ShoWTimE, I think, is going to deal with it, finish his upgrade, finish up some Archons, and then he might be the first one to push, actually, although Harstem could.
Was that blink like a 1 centimeter blink kind of thing because he didn't have vision or something? It didn't seem like he got away that hard, but ShoWTimE, he's getting a bank together. Like, he's got a lot of gas, and he's utilizing that as I said it. And he's going to have a lot of minerals available for a lot of Zealots, so I'm feeling kind of worried for Harstem at this point. His army's solid to some degree, but ShoWTimE's is a lot bigger and a lot scarier. Is that shield battery? Shield batteries aren't done yet here.
No, they are not. A stasis trap to the left is taken out, but there's still one on the right, and I'm not sure that ShoWTimE knows about it. He might be guessing, but he's got to be careful. The shield battery is going to finish. Actually, there's another shield stasis trap even. There's 3 total. So ShoWTimE's going to be very careful with how he pushes in. Harstem has this defender's advantage. He's checking all the chokes, making sure that he's on top of the ramp, and trying to actually get to that +3 as well, but that is a long ways off. So ShoWTimE just looking for the exact right moment to strike.
Yeah, ShoWTimE still has quite a bit of money to spend, which it's always so weird when you're like, okay, I'm going to attack, but I've got like a good 1,000 minerals in the bank. Okay, now he spent it all, and that is so many zealots, but Harstem's doing such a good job of just making sure that he's not fighting too crazily. That is one shield battery that a good blinking could sort it out, but oh, ShoWTimE blinks in with one, doesn't blink in with the rest of his army, blinks away. The Archons of Harstem are just going to town on all these zealots of ShoWTimE, but ShoWTimE, another big warp in here. The supplies are so close between them.
Yeah, but Harstem's Archons are still alive, and that's what has me worried. Finally, some of them go down and have to be picked up as well as the overcharge of the shield battery finally disappears. But the Immortal in the front line for Harstem takes a couple of shots, does some decent damage, protects the Archons for just a little while longer. They're all only on health, which is terrible. They're on like 10 health here, and I think Harstem, he's got to need at least another round of reinforcements where I feel confident. Is actually ShoWTimE. He could focus fire these down. The Zealots of Harstem fall, and thus the Archons do as well. ShoWTimE, it's an even supply overall. That's because Harstem went greedy on the probes. He's still lacking in not just the army supply, but at this point also the army composition. No more Archons, not any Immortals, just a couple of Zealots trying to make the difference as ShoWTimE also reinforces with his own Stalkers, his own Zealots, and there's the blink to seal the deal. ShoWTimE is going to get ahead 2-1.
Wow, that was very decisive of ShoWTimE. Like, he knew what kind of attack he wanted to take, and he stopped his probe making at 63, despite taking a fourth and whatever you. He got his very, very bulky army together. Harstem wasn't really aware of ShoWTimE's plans at all, and that really shone through, right? That probe count going up to 77. Didn't need to be there. I like that you pointed that out. And that is maybe one of the first times that I've seen a shield battery fight happen with like Archon Zealot kind of thing, and the shield battery player lost out, and that went on the whole fight there, which is crazy. Skillus whips out his notebook and he's like, the second time that shield battery overcharge did not save the game. And honestly, very well handled by ShoWTimE, because I was worried for him, like fighting into that shield battery like that. But yeah, well played. This is a great series.
It absolutely is. There's a lot of like little tiny things that happened in that fight, which was, you know, a fairly long one overall, really, where like, yeah, he didn't kill the shield battery, but then he was very observant to see all the stasis traps. One of the first things that happened was that I think he saw the one in the mineral line, so he went to go pop it, and then Harstem reacted by blinking his Stalkers to try and stop it, but it already popped and didn't really capture anything. So his Stalkers, I don't know if they were supposed to be there. I don't think it was a terrible spot for them to be in, but that was one kind of tiny thing. Then the other thing was the Stalker that blinked forward, popped the last stasis trap. But that was when you were like, yeah, maybe you should have gone with the shield battery. Usually that is the thing you have to do. You have to get rid of that overcharged shield battery, but apparently just getting rid of the stasis trap was good enough. So some of these battles, man, are definitely ones that you want to get back into with the replay and just be like, okay, what exactly went down? Like, I thought Archons beat the Zealots. Like, is that not how it always works? Apparently not for Harstem. He's lost the last 2 games despite having some nice technology on his side.
Yeah, like that fight, he had +3 on the way. ShoWTimE didn't commit to that, right? Like, he was just committed to his army, and he had 200 supply maybe against 180. But as you said, like 15 supply of that was like in extra pros for Harstem. So quite a big deficit there. And ShoWTimE definitely shown that he's very decisive in this series. Anyhow, spawning over in the top right-hand side of Jagannatha, it is Harstem.
In the bottom left is the red Protoss for Team Big. He is ShoWTimE.
I did like all the defensive stasises that he put down, because he was buying so much time and just making it very difficult to engage for ShoWTimE. Because any one of those fights, if one of those stasises went off, could have been very different. But like what you said, the Zealot popped a stasis on the left side singly, Stalker on the right side blinked in, and it was just very nicely done by ShoWTimE. And yeah, these guys, they are showing that they style up, they clash very nicely in this matchup. It's not super volatile early on thus far, but they really, really do love to play these macro games against one another.
Even with Harstem trying to be a little tricky with some proxy stargates, it really is not going to be the 3 gates or 3-gate robo or something that makes or breaks it right then and there. Just not the way these guys typically like to play. PvP, you always have to be you have to mix things up, but you don't have to super commit. Which Harstem has not done. He is once again looking to proxy a pylon by the looks of things, but it is this one really is just to fake out ShoWTimE.
This for me is very indicative of Harstem's play in PvT as well. Like, he hasn't scouted ShoWTimE's base at all. And while I could be like, oh, that's a bit risky not scouting in PvP, right? I think he knows that ShoWTimE isn't going to do anything super Larry. And he's kind of utilizing that against him. And I think that's definitely a corner, because Harstem is looking to cut a few corners against ShoWTimE, but that's one that he's been pulling out every game in this series, even making a Zealot briefly there instead of the Stalker, just to show ShoWTimE that he's producing something as quickly as possible. I did think Harstem was trying to build something, though, some tech, as quickly as possible with that.
Well, he's not chosen anything yet. They both have actually gone into as many Stalkers initially as you would expect from someone who maybe is playing to, find a proxy or to even do a little bit of pressure. Harstem is the one that changed things up, though, and actually go into those sentries. Very macro, very useful utility. And it's ShoWTimE who is still going for extra Stalkers. Now, part of that is that he hasn't found the pylon. He doesn't know that nothing is happening, so he thinks the safest bet is to go for very strong attacking units or defending units. But that pylon, I mean, it was successful in throwing ShoWTimE's game off, I would assume. Like, if it was just the pylon in the main base, ShoWTimE might have opened up Stalker Sentry, right? But he's instead got 4 Stalkers that he kind of wants to do something with.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm going to look at this from ShoWTimE's vision in a second, just to show how much of the map he's actually walked around here trying to search for something. He will eventually find his pylon now and be like, oh, it was like the last place I checked, actually, which is, quite a revelation to be like, okay, I've actually got nothing to worry about on my side of the map. That's great for me. And when he comes over to this base and he sees exactly what he's up against, he's probably going to feel pretty okay about this game all over again, which that is nice. Right now, Harstem is a little bit supply stuck after losing that pylon. But yeah, his expo does finish just a few moments earlier than ShoWTimE's.
Yeah, seconds difference. The Oracle hallucination doesn't actually end up tripping up ShoWTimE at all. He did not react with the probe pull and knows it is a hallucination based off the amount of damage that it takes. So he also got in there. I think he actually barely saw that his opponent also had 3 sentries. Things are clearly heading to that macro game. And there, you want the confirmation of the forge timing. It's kind of one of the things you're a little bit questioning right now, as we assume Blink for 90% of PvPs. And they both are about to confirm that.
Okay, did you see that double hallucination on the Adepts?
I did, yeah.
I think he was kind of hoping that Harstem would scout that. I think that, is he kind of showing it and trying to... I think that's really cool by ShoWTimE. I think that's exactly what he was trying to do there, trying to reveal to Harstem that, yeah, I've made these, you have to worry about this now, which is... I think that's really cool. They're both trying to, like, misinfo the other one. Yeah, that's really smart by Harstem, actually.
Dude, this production is like, I feel like it's tripping you up so much. Yeah, Harstem with the one, the hallucinated Adepts, yeah. Is worth giving credit to the big brain that is Harstem. I don't know if it's really going to impact a lot of things, but that was a pretty cool idea, pretty neat idea. So just continued hallucinations to actually get some scouting done. We have seen attempts to poke forward and see if there's any vulnerabilities around these third nexus, but so far everyone's always had like a shield battery, and that's I think really what you're hoping they don't have when you move forward with the army that Harstem has. So his hallucination saw the army prepared, shield battery on the way, like, yeah, why bother trying to push it?
Yeah, why bother? Why bother? Both of them going for the same expos this time, and about at the same time as well. And for the almost first time in the series, like, this is the most mirrored we've seen them both, right? Like 3 sentries apiece for constant scouting information, blink at the same time. Third expos go down, like, they're almost mirroring one another. The one little edge that Harstem seems to get continuously is that probe count. He's just a little bit extra greedy on the chrono boost and maybe just the fluid production as well.
To be honest, that's kind of how ShoWTimE ended up losing against Strange in this week's Open Cup, was that he was just always a little bit more scared and always a little bit behind. And it was shocking because when we anticipate one player being just straight up better than another, it's usually the opposite. Like they're getting all these like tiny little additions faster, more confidently. But yeah, ShoWTimE, I guess, still like a lot of people is like a little shy about PvP sometimes. It ultimately does not hold him back, as we see by the score, because despite those brief discrepancies, he still ends up winning these games. This fight, you could see it going a different way if the Immortal didn't pop out just in time. With the Immortal, ShoWTimE is going to leave.
Okay, while this was going on, because that was really nice micro by ShoWTimE, because he picked off like 3 units for free, basically. Harstem just kept on probing while all this was going on, whereas ShoWTimE stopped. So this is something that I'm really keeping an eye on now. ShoWTimE's getting a full scout off of exactly what's going on, but he is falling behind in workers. I know it's not for a long period of time or anything, but it just shows you that Harstem is just willing to probe out whenever he can. Did bite him in the bum on atmospheres, for sure, but it's definitely landing him in decent economic situations, and definitely something for ShoWTimE to maybe worry about when it comes to maybe his PvP as a whole.
Could be. It's just it's so strange because we're talking about like ShoWTimE falling behind in various ways, yet he's still winning the series. And when we look at his PvP win record, it's actually insanely high. So it's like, well, maybe he's the one that's better off. Because one thing that is happening additionally because of that probe count difference is that Harstem is always getting more assimilators, which, you know, Tech and Archon specifically are so damn powerful. I've always looked at that. The previous 2 games, I was looking at that, looking at the Archon count and being, yes, Harstem should just have a lead. Thankfully, you got more probes, you got more assimilators, you got more Archons. And yet ShoWTimE's able to take the engagements where I guess his concaves are so much better, especially like in game 2, that was one of the big differences. Game 3, not nearly as much. That was actually kind of like a choke, right, in game 3. But anyways, his number of units is just so much greater, despite being on that lower probe count, because he doesn't have, I guess, 6 probes in gas that aren't doing as much as I thought they were doing for Harstem.
I think Harstem should stop probing now, though. Like, he's hit 80.
Yes.
He's a good 16 clear already. I kept seeing that probe count. The button kept on happening. ShoWTimE is behind in supply, but it's a little bit deceiving, right? Because that army's still just as good as Harstem's. If we look at the Archon count, Harstem's actually ahead in that. And he's still making more as well. This game is very much Harstem with an edge, as long as nothing drastic happens. But ShoWTimE's the one making the switch to disruptors now, and he's doing it a lot before Harstem ever intended to.
Well, Harstem's still playing around with the typical idea of trying to have at least 1 engagement before disruptors, where you do test the waters, see if you have an upgrade lead, and see if you get a better concave or the like. But yeah, actually, I agree with ShoWTimE in this assessment. It's gone on for a pretty long time. They're both about halfway to their +3. I don't think an engagement can be had that would actually be game deciding. Harstem might disagree, depending on what he sees.
Harstem was making 3 probes at a time again there. Now, he did cancel a couple. I think he's a little bit nervous and just used to things, but he is tricking. He's trying to fake with the Warp Prism. ShoWTimE does have units ready in his main by the looks of the minimap here, which is nice play on both ends. But Harstem, yeah, he's definitely got a large army here, one that is quite terrifying. But ShoWTimE is now the defender with the cannons, the shield batteries. Does he want to take this fight? There's so many blue Archons there at the bottom of that ramp.
I guess he wanted to take the fight just to draw Harstem in, actually, into the disruptor shot, perhaps into the choke, but then he actually is the one to leave it. And that's where I'm with you. I'm like, this army of Harstem is still so powerful. He has 8 Archons to ShoWTimE's 3. But ShoWTimE's got, like, a lot of additional zealots. And of course, most importantly, he now has that disruptor technology, which it takes a couple of shots, but they will eventually pop the cotton balls. And without the Archons, Harstem is actually down to a very kind of lame army once those Archons are gone. So he's got to take these disruptors seriously, and I don't think there's a way for him to actually take them on. So I think he just has to evacuate and go into his own disruptors.
Oh, using the speed zone here with the disruptors. Connections do go down. Some of those Archons are falling. I think for Harstem also, it's about buying time. Like, as long as he's taking fights on this side of the map, he doesn't have to worry about getting caught while he's transitioning. I am, again, just very worried. He's still constantly making probes while all this is going on. And while it is turning into a bit of a different game, He already has the economic lead. I don't think he needs to lean on that as much as he is doing.
You might be right about it being a bit of a habit, a bit of like a safe space is his blanket, you know, he's actually building probes while things are happening. Because, you know, granted, a lot of time in late game PvP, things are happening all over the map, and having that consistent probe production is sometimes necessary. But they're actually both making some mistakes, if Harstem's probe count is indeed a mistake, as ShoWTimE also had on a second Dark Shrine, which he still has not noticed, so that's a bit awkward. Oh, he noticed it, okay. And actually starts up BT Blink, grabs Harstem's Warp Prism, which was just unfortunately rallied, and continues to control the map, as now is it Harstem who's chasing down ShoWTimE on his own side of the map, not able to defend that top left base, which is where all those extra probes just went to, but I don't know if they actually get into mining. Okay, ShoWTimE not willing to get stuck in a corner.
Okay, I love the positioning of ShoWTimE. He got the army of Harstem behind him, so Harstem would have to run into the disruptors, but Harstem was very careful about just using his stalkers to try and pick them off one by one. And Harstem, all things said and done, as critical as I've been, he is the one with an economic lead in this situation. And right now, fighting on this speed zone is so crazy. Oh, that disruptor shot was huge.
Gosh, yeah, that took out a lot of units. Fortunately, ShoWTimE's disruptors are still alive and are going to help him evacuate, as he has 6, so some are even rallying forward compared to Harstem's 1, but that was a pretty darn good shot for Harstem. I think at this point, now that Harstem is, you know, he's not going to die to a slight army disadvantage or tech disadvantage, his better probe count is straight up better. The late game PvP, where there's so many bases and so much harassment, actually is quite common to see probes up to 90 probes. And right now, I actually love Harstem's position. He just needs to get his disruptor count up.
Yeah, and as long as things are happening on ShoWTimE's side of the map, nice blink away by ShoWTimE with the DTs, as long as things are happening away from him, he doesn't have to worry about defending. That economy goes untouched all the way, and right now, Harstem's army is also very strong, and he's the one taking very good fights here against ShoWTimE.
Harstem has a lot more stalkers, giving him a little bit more mobility as he tries to run around the map. And then actually, oh my goodness, it's like Sterile Lambo, man. We got a little bit of a surround coming in for ShoWTimE from behind with his charge lot DTs, almost so close to trapping Harstem up against those rocks.
Yeah, I like that you pointed out. That is exactly what I thought of. The herder becomes the herdee almost in this situation, though. That did not go as well for ShoWTimE as it did for Serral. Now, ShoWTimE's moving into that 2-army kind of situation. He really wants to kind of flank this. And oh, this army, is it going to get caught out? Oh, this could be so bad for the German, but actually, it's Harstem that's running away.
I guess he wasn't quite aware of where the other army is, and he did almost just get surrounded, so yeah, a little paranoid about that. Maybe if he had dedicated, would have trapped himself too much against the incoming disruptors from ShoWTimE, who now is actually struggling to know where to send his disruptors. He does decide to send them to the right side, but he's got Zealots on the left. That's what caused that momentary indecision. It is being cleaned up by stalkers, and the disruptors are in their rightful place. There are so many of them. Harstem actually blinks, scouts it out. Oh gosh, does get one disruptor. Is a little more worried there, but the actual army, non-disruptor army of ShoWTimE, just jumped on top of Harstem, took down a lot of units, and forces Harstem to retreat.
Harstem, it might look a little bit sloppy, but this is kind of what the game is leading to. Like, he has a better economy. He has 95 probes versus 70. He can actually throw units away. We do see that he has a big bank available as well. The one thing he can't do is get too carried away, because ShoWTimE's army, it's very powerful. It has 6 disruptors, 26 stalkers, 10 of his own DTs. This is big, this is big.
DTs blink aggressively. Some of them still get popped off by a second disruptor shot, and the rest of them are going to actually die, as ShoWTimE's disruptors, just shy of actually grabbing the stalkers, are still going to clean things up. Harstem down to pure stalkers, of course going to have to retreat back to, oh my goodness, a lot of cannons apparently, and that is going to hold the line for a little bit. But that was a scary moment. You know, he was severely down to that army supply. His disruptor count was basically reset, but he has at least the cannons to fall back to. A little bit of harassment still actually distracting ShoWTimE as well. And he had that bank. But now, after taking a bad fight, you have to decide where that bank goes. Do you actually continue to transition into carriers, or do you replace your disruptor count and your stalker count?
Oh, I mean, these disruptor shots could be absolutely huge. Harstem has been trading less efficiently, but I think his game plan overall, getting to these carriers, it's a good one. The thing is, it's not as if ShoWTimE's lacking in the anti-air this game. It's way less emphasis on the Zealot Archon, way more on Stalker Disruptor.
ShoWTimE, despite only having one Stargate right now, is now adding on the Fleet Beacon, more Stargates, and has been upgrading his air, so he's not going to fall super far behind in those upgrades. But it looks like Harstem managed to find ShoWTimE out of position with both armies, at least temporarily. Now, however, he is at risk of being surrounded once again. He's getting out of there as fast as possible. ShoWTimE seconds away from 2 amazing surrounds. Means that Harstem will at least live. ShoWTimE is going to carry forward with his momentum. However, send his Zealots forward, take out that Disruptor, and continue the fight as he spreads away from the further Disruptor shots of his opponents. That means Harstem's down to, I believe, just 1 shot from the Disruptor, and it's okay. Not great. He might have to show his carrier soon.
Yeah, and he really wants to hold on. He wants to wait. He's got such a good probe count here. Is that 1 pylon? No, the shield battery's still going. It's still going. It's right at the front. The pylon is. Big warpins on both sides here. So many disruptors. Lots of DTs as well for ShoWTimE. This is the first little notch in Harstem's economy that's really getting taken down by ShoWTimE here. And that resources loss tab, just in the last minute alone, went very much in favor of ShoWTimE.
I think it was like a 3,000 or 4,000 difference. Now it's a lot different. So Harstem, he does take a very bad, a pretty bad engagement, and that led to him losing not just a base, but the probes and all the static defense that, he'd have to reinvest into if he wanted to feel secure again. But at least he's already got a couple of carriers. The remaining amount of minerals that he has, should he not be able to get another base, is enough to get him to max. It's enough to continue on building disruptors and carriers, right? So he's not out of the game, but he does have to be careful about further engagements going just as poorly. Shows his carriers. There's 6 of them with 1-1. No, 2-1 actually. And ShoWTimE's got to respect that.
He certainly does. I can't believe how brazen ShoWTimE is. Like, he knows exactly how much time he has when these disruptor shots go off, and he just jumps in and snipes a few of them. He is producing quite a few Tempests with this. That army on the right cancels that base while this is going off. He's playing with fire, but he's doing it so well.
Tempest, lone Tempest, aren't really adding a whole lot. It looks like we are going to have an engagement. ShoWTimE still having so much more of that ground army, but his disruptors weren't quite in play. Here they come now. Harstem is going to try and bully forward now that he has his carriers, I guess, actually being bullies. He still has that air superiority, and he realizes that he can actually take advantage of it. So he does grab the Nexus, and that makes it an exchange. So ShoWTimE's also back down to 5 bases, and now it's a question of who has the better engagement, who has the better composition.
Yeah, like straight up, I think Harstem's army's still damn good, and it's very hard to micro against those carriers and whatnot, but the Tempests, there is answer to the carriers, but they're so fragile, as you pointed out previously. And Harstem, he's quicker to pounce on the economy. This is a less valuable base, but he's getting close to where all the production lies, which is that natural and main.
Ooh, we got ourselves a little bit of a base race. It wouldn't be a fantastic PvP without it. As ShoWTimE just says, all right, this is the way to go. Harstem was the one to really commit first, and he is already on top of that production, which is really critical. He's going to stop more Tempest, stop more upgrades. ShoWTimE, light years away basically from Harstem's production, is in a very different scenario. He will be able to kill Harstem's economy, but is it worth losing your production? Usually the production going down is a lot worse.
Yeah, I think getting those production going is so bad, because 5 Tempests remain. That's by no means like a weak little group, but it's not enough to one-shot, is it? These Zealots, though, did he really want to walk them in the main? Like, I guess to buy time, but it's a little bit suicidal.
Maybe hoping that the stalkers would blink in, not paying attention or something like that, right? But I think it was also just it's a base race. Things get really weird real fast. Harstem is going to recall here, but only wait a second, I don't know what that recall was. Some stalkers come in and get obliterated instantly. That was a bit awkward, but it is worth also noting specifically that Harstem, not just taking down the production, also grabbed, I believe, 2 Tempests that were kind of hiding off in the corner. So ShoWTimE's only down to 3 Tempests versus 6 carriers. And so much of this is also about how they're going to engage. Will the interceptors all be released and attacking the Tempest, or can the Tempests actually use their range to their advantage?
Yeah, what's happening over here? We've got some Zealots on the right side for ShoWTimE. ShoWTimE still has an economy behind this.
Oh my God.
Great Tempest shot with the Stalkers as well. They jumped in, get boomed by that Disruptor there. Harstem's on the chase, but going through this speed zone against disruptors, that's going to be tricky.
Like, oh gosh, ShoWTimE is just like smacking himself in the head for that one. Didn't realize that disruptors are still in play. I think they might have avoided some like scouting right towards the end, and they were almost late to the party, but they came in at the exact right time. ShoWTimE taking a devastating blow to his stalker counts, also loses out on another Tempest, and he is now cornered up against a very frightening army of Harstem. Harstem, if he didn't win this one, it was his last life, but it seems like he is on the precipice of victory as he moves in. The shield battery overcharge from ShoWTimE is really not going to be that helpful. The blink forward from Harstem does cause the loss of some of his stalkers, and one Tempest remains for our red Protoss, but I don't think it'll be enough. This is such a close game, but it is ultimately looking like Harstem will even up the score.
Oh, well played by the Dutchman, and the carriers reign supreme in the sky. ShoWTimE with 2k, 2.5k. Can't really spend it, can produce 4 stalkers at a time, but Harstem ties up the series. We're on to a final game with this one. This is great stuff from both of them.
This is exactly what PvP can deliver, and we're finally seeing it here. I am so glad I was wrong about the prediction. I still think that overall ShoWTimE might be able to take it, but Harstem has shown some fantastic PvP. We're going to go to a break, guys, and when we come back, it's finally one of the Game 5s here for StarCraft 2 DreamHack Summer. Game 5 is finally happening between Harstem and ShoWTimE, delivering quite the PvP series. And the last map is going to be on Romanicide, which I believe has given us some of the greatest PvPs in the past.
Yeah, this map in particular is where you very often see those massive armies in different positions on the map, not necessarily all about Disruptor. But yeah, these two, like this series so far has been great. Like if I had to sum it up a little bit about what both of them been going for, ShoWTimE has been very, very Iceman-esque. He's just been very solid all round, doing what he does, whereas Harstem, he's been a bit more of a trickster. Been trying to eke out the economic advantage, the pylons on the map, trying to kind of surprise his opponent a little bit and just trick him. Like even the hallucinated adepts was a cool attempt. Anyhow, spawning over in the top left-hand side, playing for Team Liquid, it is Harstem.
In the bottom right, playing for BIG, he is ShoWTimE.
I think what's also worth noting is if I told you that these players, their history in games, like in full series, is 24-3 in favor of ShoWTimE, this series does not reflect that at all. Like they are both very evenly matched, is what it looks like to me.
Mm-hmm. It's much more like their final best of 5 in that Open Cup, where it wasn't supposed to happen. I was looking at the same stats you are just a month ago, really, and I was like, you know, Harstem is on a roll, so let's watch it unfold. And he was actually able to take victory. We could have a similar event happen here, which would be a big surprise. I mean, Harstem, he's such a lovable guy. He's got so many fans because of his personality, his play style, and of course his content creation. Even still, even the diehard fans have to admit that as we watch him go up against the Titan that is ShoWTimE as just a, you know, there you have it, pro player, streams a little bit, but not much. He's not kind of supposed to win. The stats don't say so anyways. So it would be a very, very big achievement for Harstem to not just win against ShoWTimE, but to do it in a game 5, in the lower bracket, actually knock the German Titan out of DreamHack. That would be substantial, man. I'm getting a tear in my eye to Muslim. I actually kind of want it to happen now. I've convinced myself I want Harstem to win.
Oh, I mean, like it is incredible to see, and they're both staying true to their colors as well. Like ShoWTimE, very diligent about the scouting, just making sure that he knows what he's up against. Harstem again, like producing that Zealot. Then when he has enough gas, gets out the Stalker. Now ShoWTimE seeing that only one Stalker popped out, maybe that gives him a bit of a sign that okay, that means that you use the gas elsewhere. And we do see that there is a proxy Stargate again, but it's not super aggressively placed. This to me just screams that Harstem, very comfortable with this kind of style, just wants to try throw ShoWTimE off a little bit. And I think it works, you know. Like Harstem is very in the dark about what he's actually up against here. Like he hasn't sent anything over to the other side of the map at all.
That's a good point. Harstem has not been the one. I mean, he assumes that he's going to take charge by building these proxies, whether they're fake or not, that he's going to get ShoWTimE to react. And ShoWTimE's not going to be a very risky player and try and push a 3-gate or something, which he's correct about. But I do think that ShoWTimE is maybe a little bit like, you know what, you've done this before. I'm tired of it. I'm going to go for a Stargate before I get my Nexus. So it's still pretty fast, not as fast as yours. And I'm going to try and actually get some damage done in return. It's not a Phoenix first. He's not going to go that far and assume that Harstem proxy a Stargate, but he might try and get some return damage because you know what? Harstem did not scout ShoWTimE Stargate.
And also, that was 2 shots on separate probes there. So that Oracle, not only did it take some damage, it didn't actually get any damage done. And ShoWTimE now knows exactly what he's up against. And Harstem is still, as you said, totally in the dark.
This could be bad news. I mean, Harstem is even moving those 2 cautionary stalkers. His oracles just got attacked by a very real Phoenix. Does that tip him off? No, he's actually just going to micro his oracles, which makes sense. So 4 probes go down, but then Harstem's main mineral line is totally undefended. ShoWTimE's single oracle is going to do equalizing damage, maybe even more. 6, 7 probes go down, and ShoWTimE's oracle lives.
This is a case of like Harstem being fancy, being tricky, but this is the same trick he's pulled a few times, right? And that lack of info that he got, it's absolutely got him quite a deficit this game. And it's not over by any means, but this is maybe one of the first games where ShoWTimE has just taken a very real lead at the start of the game.
Absolutely. Harstem does have his technology ready. Starlight Council has yet to start Blink because he doesn't have the gas, but he does start up +1. I guess that is the bigger priority for him. He has managed to grab an upgrade lead in many of these games, and again, it will happen, but a very, very small one. Since they both opened with Stargate firsts, that is going to happen. I guess the rest of their build will kind of look similar, but Harstem was the one that dedicated a little bit more to it and has not gotten rewarded.
Certainly hasn't. Now, if we think about like what can Harstem do, because again, he's not down at, oh my goodness, this Oracle. This Oracle of ShoWTimE has 10 probe kills, and like the few of Harstem, I don't know what they had together, maybe 6 in total. I think this one might fall to this Phoenix as well. So that just goes to show you the value, but things that Harstem has to think about now. So he did start getting up his third a bit faster, and he delayed the third of ShoWTimE. That's all well and good, but he has to start thinking about ways to get into this game. Like maybe not even to play catch up, because I know Harstem hates that. He's going to think about leapfrogging his opponent. So we're probably going to see nothing but chrono boosted probes. Probably not a timing attack in this kind of position.
Probably not. It is one of those games that can, especially on a map like Romanicide, where it is defender's advantage supposed to kick in really hard with this high ground 3-base setup. It's probably one of those games that will move on to that +2. We'll move on to another late game scenario, because I don't think ShoWTimE is really going to be trying to do any. Once upon a time, especially in Romanicide, there was a couple of like proxy gateway 3-base attacks, right? No, I don't think ShoWTimE's going to do that. So that means that Harstem, as long as he takes the appropriate risks, can come back in the economy, but it definitely doesn't set him up for any type of attack of his own.
Yeah, Harstem also has to commit a bit of gas to a sentry, which he's got 1 now, but ShoWTimE's on 3, so he can constantly scout and get a read of his opponent. Harstem is doing a good job of catching up again in probes, by the way. Like, he's doing exactly that where he's chrono boosting. ShoWTimE is doing the same. Now we see a little bit of change. Oh, did you see that? He went for a Warp Prism and cancelled it. Maybe not. Maybe thinking, all right, you want to play the greedy game? I'm going to take a force behind this, and that's exactly what he does.
Whoa, Harstem is playing a greedy game, but not one based off of pure economics. He's going to try and add on very fast technology. At one point, PvP was a lot like this. We actually anticipated a faster transition into disruptors. That's all it was for a while. Then it came into more of like a mass gateway thing, and we kind of settled in today's meta as being like, well, do your +2 attack first, and then see if you have some time to get to a robotics bay. With Harstem going for it this fast, he is taking a pretty high risk, but he could get a high reward. He could actually get robotics bay units out before ShoWTimE punishes him.
Yeah, he definitely could. And the thing is, when you're in a position like Harstem where you're a little bit behind against a player as good as ShoWTimE, you do have to go for slightly unorthodox stuff that pushes you out the comfort zone, but also pushes your opponent out the comfort zone. ShoWTimE hasn't been as greedy with the probes. He has taken a much earlier fourth, but his army, like if we look at it, it's the kind of army that really wants to catch you out in the open when you're being aggressive. Harstem, I don't think he's really produced that many battle units for a long time. He's been on the same 14 Stalkers, 1 Sentry, now just getting out his first Disruptor as well. So incredibly much in greed, Zombie Grub, like the economy and the tech, as you said, he's absolutely hoping he doesn't get attacked.
It's the type of thing that you see a Zerg player do, like pump out that last round of drones just before the Protoss attacks, and that's what Harstem's trying to do, but I'm not sure it's going to work. He grabs the Oracle to start things off, but they did get confirmation. He sees that the army is in fact ready to engage, and I don't know if there's much he can do about that, even with him finally warping in his own units. The Disruptor is actually going to try and change things up. Doesn't really get the most amazing hit. He still is down 20 overall army supply. His shield batteries are not done. A second Disruptor comes in, but is that really going to make ShoWTimE so shy? Like 2 Disruptors is not impossible to break through, but maybe in these positions it is.
I gotta say, ShoWTimE handled that really weirdly. Like, his whole Zealot army was behind 3 Stalkers and an Immortal, and they couldn't get in. They trickled in 1 by 1. The resources lost tab before that little engagement happened, it was like 1,100 lost for Harstem and 200 for ShoWTimE. Now it's actually even between the two, which just goes to show you Harstem handled that beautifully, and ShoWTimE a little bit clunky with his move or unit management, but he's adding on Phoenix now to deal with the disruptors. I like that.
Yeah, one Phoenix at a time from the Stargate. I mean, they both had one, right? So ShoWTimE is going to try and beat back the disruptors with just a simple Phoenix pickup, and which it's actually already going quite poorly. Harstem grabs a Phoenix out of the skies, injures another one, but all the Phoenix have to do is lift once. They lift one of the reinforcing disruptors. One of the front lines also getting target fire down. 2 disruptors remain. One gets an amazing hit on top of the charge lots, but the ShoWTimE simply have too much. It might be the case. The overcharged shield battery for Harstem is taken out. He forced retreat away from the overwhelming number of Zealots, which means that his Nexus is under threat. And unfortunately, this was almost that Cinderella story. I don't think it's happening. ShoWTimE up 30 supply is absolutely winning this game.
Oh, he certainly is. Harstem, he hoped, he prayed. He's even got DTs on the other side of the map, which ShoWTimE's actually having to recall back home to try and deal with. 11 probes of his own going down, but 18 of Harstem, and Harstem immediately trying to re-establish a 4th. And oh, this is a chaotic game in a very roundabout way.
I mean, I love that the BT gives Harstem a brief glimmer of hope, right? It did force that recall and kill a decent number of probes, but Harstem, had he not lost his 4th, I actually would be like, oh, hold on here, but he did lose his 4th. I mean, that's so much time to wait to have your probes resaturated, and it's also just a position that you no longer have guarded. Like, you don't have pylons, you don't have a shield battery there, so it means it is going to be canceled. At least this one is. That's actually a 5th. ShoWTimE is not aware of the other 4th, shall we say? And maybe Harstem is kind of banking on that to actually save the day. He's got a good number of disruptors. One is going to pop up on the Stalkers, but he needs to get rid of all these Zealots. A last-second split actually not even necessary. Harstem just kind of whiffs on that one disruptor shot. The third one doesn't get very much. His Stalkers are being totally surrounded, and his disruptors, oh, so close to getting a shot, but it didn't actually go off. The last disruptor shot finally hits the Zealots, but it's too late. ShoWTimE's got a reinforcing warp prism. He's got so many units, and he does have an observer on the front line, so the DTs will not save the day. Kind of a heartbreaker here, but Harstem is going to fall in the lower bracket.
Oh, GG is called. ShoWTimE does take the